She walked through those doors every night at 11:47 p.m. Not a minute earlier. Not a second later. The Mafia boss watched from his window, jaw tight, fists clenched. When she finally returned at 2:13 a.m., he shattered a whiskey glass against the marble floor. "Is this an hour to come home?" His voice echoed through the mansion like a death sentence. The staff froze. He never raised his voice. Not at anyone. But for her, the quiet maid who never explained, never apologized, he was unraveling. What he didn't know would save his life. What he was about to discover would change everything. This is the story of a woman who controlled an empire from the shadows, and the man who almost destroyed her for it. If you're ready for a story where power, jealousy, and hidden truths collide, stay until the end. You won't see this twist coming. The mansion's front door clicked shut at 2:13 a.m. Zara Okoye moved through the marble foyer with the same unhurried grace she always carried, her dark skin gleaming faintly under the crystal chandelier's light. Her maid's uniform was pristine despite the late hour, not a thread out of place. She carried no bags, no evidence of where she'd been. Her face revealed nothing. But someone was watching. Kang Jae-min stood at the top of the grand staircase, one hand gripping the banister, so hard his knuckles had gone white. He'd been waiting for 3 hours and 26 minutes. His jaw was set in a hard line, his normally controlled expression fractured by something raw and unfamiliar. "Stop!" His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Zara paused mid-step, her hand still on the door. She didn't turn around immediately. For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of the antique clock in the corner, each second stretching impossibly long. Then she turned, slowly, and met his gaze. "Sir!" Her voice was calm. Too calm. It made something twist violently in his chest. "Is this an hour to come home?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with accusation and something else he couldn't name. Around them, the night staff had emerged from the shadows, 3 housekeepers, 2 security guards, the night butler. They stood frozen, eyes wide, witnessing something they'd never seen before. Kang Jae-min never raised his voice, never showed emotion, never cared where anyone went or when they returned. Until her, Zara's expression didn't change. She simply looked at him with those dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to see straight through his expensive suit and cold reputation to something underneath. "I had personal matters to attend to," she said quietly. "Personal matters." He descended the stairs slowly, each footfall echoing. "At 2 in the morning. In this city. In my house. Yes. That's all you have to say? What would you like me to say, Mr. Kang?" The formal address felt like a slap. They both knew she was the only person in this mansion who wasn't terrified of him. The only one who met his eyes without flinching. The only one who moved through his world like she owned it, despite wearing a maid's uniform. "I want you to explain where you've been." His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "Who you've been with." Something flickered in her eyes then. Not fear, never fear. Recognition, maybe. Understanding that this conversation was about more than punctuality. "I don't owe you an explanation of my personal time, Mr. Kang. You do when you live under my roof. I work under your roof. There's a difference." The security guard near the door shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke to Kang Jae-min like this. No one challenged him. Men had died for less. But Zara simply stood there, spine straight, chin lifted slightly, waiting. Jaemin realized his hands were shaking. With rage, he told himself. With fury at her insubordination. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered the truth. He'd been terrified. For 3 hours, he'd imagined her hurt, taken dead in some alley. And underneath that fear was something even more unsettling, the image of her with someone else, somewhere he couldn't follow. "You're dismissed," he said finally, the words clipped. "Go to your quarters. As you wish." She turned and walked away, her footsteps soft against the marble. She didn't hurry, didn't look back. And somehow that made everything worse. When she disappeared down the hallway, Jae-min became aware of the eyes on him. His staff, watching their untouchable boss crack over a maid who'd come home late. "Get back to work," he snarled. "All of you." They scattered. Alone in the foyer, Jae-min picked up the whiskey glass he'd left on the side table and threw it against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. Because the truth he wouldn't admit, even to himself, was that Zara Okoye had gotten under his skin. And he had no idea what to do about it. The next morning, Jae-min sat in his office with Chairman Seo, his most trusted advisor, and the mansion's head of security. The older man stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face expressionless. "You called for me, sir? I want you to follow her." Seo's eyebrows rose fractionally. "Miss Okoye?" "Yes." "May I ask why?" Jae-min leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled under his chin. He'd barely slept, his mind churning through possibilities, each one worse than the last. "She's been leaving the mansion late at night, returning at unusual hours. I want to know where she goes." "Sir, with respect, the staff are allowed personal time." "I know that." Jae-min's voice sharpened. "This isn't about rules. Something is off. Her behavior has changed over the past 3 months. Haven't you noticed?" Seo considered this. "She's always been private. More than private. Secretive." Jae-min stood, moving to the window to look down at the gardens below. "Last week, she received a phone call and left immediately. 2 weeks before that, she requested time off with no explanation. And last night," he stopped himself. "Last night she came home late," Seo finished carefully. "At 2:13 a.m. You were waiting for her." It wasn't a question, and Jae-min didn't respond to it. Instead, he turned to face his advisor fully. "Find out where she goes, who she meets, what she does. But be discreet. I don't want her to know she's being followed." Seo hesitated, and Jae-min recognized the look. The old man had served his family for 30 years. He'd seen Jae-min grow from a boy into the ruthless leader he was now. And he'd never seen him like this. "Sir, if I may, your interest in Miss Okoye seems to go beyond security concerns. Your job is to follow orders, not analyze them." "Of course." Seo bowed slightly. "I'll begin immediately." After he left, Jae-min returned to his desk but found himself unable to focus on the documents in front of him. His mind kept drifting back to the night before, to the way Zara had looked at him with that calm, knowing expression. What was she hiding? And why did the thought of her keeping secrets make him feel like he was losing control of something essential? 3 days later, Chairman Seo laid a folder on Jae-min's desk. "You found something?" "Yes, sir. And you're not going to like it." Jae-min opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, grainy but clear enough. Zara, dressed in dark clothes instead of her uniform, meeting men in abandoned warehouses. Zara, sitting in the back of unmarked cars. Zara, entering buildings in the worst parts of a city, places even his men avoided. "Who are these people?" His voice was cold now, all emotion locked down. "We don't have full identifications yet. But based on the locations and behavior, they appear to be connected to various criminal organizations. Rival gangs. Black market dealers." Seo paused. "There's more." "Show me." Seo pulled out another photo. This one showed Zara sitting across from a man Jae-min recognized immediately, Kim Sung-ho, the leader of the Jade Serpents, one of their biggest rivals. "When was this taken?" 2 nights ago. They met for approximately 40 minutes in a private room at the Red Lotus restaurant. Jaemin's mind raced. Zara was meeting with his enemies, sharing information, perhaps, selling secrets. The betrayal cut deeper than he'd expected, a physical ache in his chest. "There's something else you should know," Seo continued. "We've been tracking her movements for 3 days, but she's been doing this for at least 6 months. Maybe longer. She's very good at avoiding surveillance. If we hadn't been specifically looking for her..." 6 months. Jaemin's voice was barely a whisper. "She's been working against me for 6 months. It appears so. The question is, who is she really working for? And how much damage has she already done?" Jae-min stared at the photo of Zara, her face partially hidden by shadow but unmistakably her. He thought of all the times she'd been in this office, cleaning while he conducted business. All the conversations she might have overheard. All the documents she could have photographed. "Sir, I recommend immediate termination. Not just employment. No. Sir, I'll handle this myself." Jae-min closed the folder, his jaw tight. "Continue surveillance. I want to know everyone she meets, everything she does. But no one touches her." "Understood." "Sir, if she's a threat." "I said no one touches her." That's an order. Seal bowed and left, clearly unhappy but obedient. Alone, Jaemin picked up the photo of Zara again. Even in the grainy surveillance image, she looked composed, in control. And somehow, despite everything, he found himself remembering the way she'd looked at him that night in the foyer. "What are you doing, Zara?" he whispered to the empty room. But the woman in the photo kept her secrets. That evening, Zara was preparing Mr. Kang's study when he entered unexpectedly. She'd heard his footsteps in the hallway, that distinctive confident stride, and had braced herself. "Mr. Kang, I wasn't expecting you until later. We need to talk." She set down her cleaning supplies and faced him, hands folded calmly in front of her. "Of course." He closed the door behind him, and she registered the deliberate click of the lock. Not a threat, she assessed quickly, but a need for privacy. "Interesting. How long have you worked for me, Zara?" 14 months, sir." 14 months. He moved closer, and she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the barely controlled energy radiating from him. "In that time, have I been unfair to you?" "No, sir." "Have I asked you to do anything unreasonable?" "No, sir." "Then why?" The word came out sharper than he'd intended. "Why are you betraying me?" There it was. Zara's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence." He pulled out his phone, showed her the photos. "I know where you've been going, who you've been meeting. I know about Kim Sung-ho, the warehouses, everything." She looked at the photos calmly, then back at his face. "You've been having me followed." "Of course I have. You're meeting with my enemies, sneaking around in the middle of the night. What did you expect?" "I expected you to trust that I know what I'm doing." The audacity of that statement made him laugh, a harsh sound without humor. "Trust? You want me to trust you while you're meeting with the Jade Serpents?" "Yes. Give me one reason why I shouldn't throw you out right now. Or worse." Zara was quiet for a moment, studying him with that unreadable expression. Then she said, "Because despite what you think, I've never betrayed you. Not once." "Then explain the photos." "I can't. Can't or won't. Both." The frustration building in his chest was overwhelming. He wanted to shake her, to force the truth out, but more than that, he wanted her to choose to tell him. To trust him the way she was demanding he trust her. "You realize what this looks like," he said quietly. "What I have to do about it." "What do you have to do about it, Mr. Kang?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. They both knew he could have her killed with a phone call, could make her disappear without a trace. That's what he did to traitors. But the thought of Zara gone, of never seeing her face again, of this mansion without her quiet presence, made something inside him revolt. "I don't know," he admitted, and the honesty surprised them both. "I should, but I don't." "Then maybe you should ask yourself why." She held his gaze, and he saw something flicker there. Not defiance exactly, but a challenge. An invitation to see beyond the surface. "Tell me the truth," he said, his voice dropping. "Please." The please seemed to surprise her. Kang Jae-min didn't beg, didn't ask. He commanded, and people obeyed or suffered. "I can't give you the whole truth," she said finally. "Not yet. But I can tell you this. Everything I do to protect this household. You may not understand it. You may not believe it. But it's the truth. Protect us by meeting with our enemies. Sometimes the best way to fight your enemies is to know them better than they know themselves." He studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. But that didn't mean she was telling the truth. She was too smart, too controlled. She could be lying brilliantly, and he'd never know. "I want answers, Zara. I know you do. But some answers are more dangerous than the questions." She moved toward the door, and he let her go, his mind spinning. As her hand touched the doorknob, she paused. "Mr. Kang." "Yes." "You should know that the Jade Serpents are planning something. An attack. Soon." His blood ran cold. "What kind of attack?" "I don't have all the details yet. But when I do, I'll make sure you're protected." She looked back at him then, and for just a moment, her mask slipped. He saw something raw there, something real. "I always make sure you're protected." Then she was gone, leaving him standing in his study with more questions than answers, and a growing suspicion that he'd been catastrophically wrong about everything. That night, Jamin couldn't sleep. He sat in his private quarters, nursing a glass of whiskey and staring at the folder Seo had given him. The photos of Zara, mysterious and beautiful and possibly saving his life while he'd been busy suspecting her of treason. He thought back over the past 14 months, trying to see what he'd missed. 3 months ago, there had been a planned ambush on his convoy. Someone had leaked the route to a rival gang. But at the last minute, Jamin had changed his schedule due to a scheduling conflict that his secretary couldn't explain. He'd been furious about the mix-up, but it had saved his life. The ambush had happened, but the convoy was empty. He'd never found out who leaked the information. 7 months ago, a shipment of weapons had been accidentally rerouted, preventing a raid by federal agents that would have destroyed his operations. 8 months ago, a traitor in his organization had been exposed, though Jamin had never figured out how the evidence had surfaced so conveniently. Coincidences, or something else. He grabbed his phone and called Seo. "Sir, it's 3 in the morning. I need you to pull all security incidents from the past year. Everything. Attempted attacks, leaked information, close calls. Everything that should have gone wrong but didn't. Sir, that will take time. I want it on my desk by noon tomorrow." And Seo cross-referenced the timing with Zara's late-night activities. There was a pause. "You think she's been helping us? I think I've been an idiot, but I need proof before I can be sure." He hung up and returned to the window, looking out over the grounds. Somewhere out there in the city, Zara was probably doing whatever it was she did, meeting dangerous people in dangerous places, risking her life for reasons he didn't understand. "Who are you?" he whispered to the night. But he was starting to suspect he knew. And if he was right, he'd made a terrible mistake. The report landed on his desk at 11:47 a.m. Seo had always been efficient. Jamin read through it carefully, his heart sinking with each page. 15 major incidents over the past year. 15 times when disaster had been narrowly averted through what had seemed like luck or coincidence. And every single time, Zara had been absent from the mansion the night before. "God," he breathed, leaning back in his chair. "She's been protecting us all along." Seo stood on the other side of the desk, his expression grim. "It appears so. But, sir, that raises more questions. Who is she working for? What organization has that kind of reach? And why? Why would she risk her life for a mafia boss she barely knows?" Jamin finished. "Yes, I'm wondering the same thing. There's more." Seo pulled out another document. "I did some digging into her background. Zara Okoye, born in Lagos, Nigeria, moved to Seoul 8 years ago. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 years ago, there was a gang war in the Iriwan district. A small family-owned restaurant got caught in the crossfire, and the entire family was killed, all except one person who wasn't there that night. A young woman named Amara Okoye, Zara's sister. The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture Jamin didn't want to see. Where is the sister now? Dead. Killed herself 2 years later. Couldn't live with the survivor's guilt, according to the police report. Jamin closed his eyes. So Zara lost her entire family to gang violence. It would explain her interest in preventing similar situations. It's more than interest, Seo. It's a mission. She's trying to save people the way she couldn't save her family. He stood abruptly, pacing. And I almost had her killed for it. To be fair, sir, she's been meeting with your enemies, without your knowledge or permission, because she knows I would have stopped her. Because I'm too proud, too paranoid too. He stopped himself. Where is she now? In her quarters, I believe. Get her. Bring her to my office. Now. But before Seo could move, alarms began blaring throughout the mansion. What the hell? Jamin started, but then the window behind him exploded in a shower of glass. Gunfire. Shouting. The sound of men storming the mansion. We're under attack. Seo yelled, pulling out his weapon. Sir, we need to get you to the safe room. But Jamin was already moving, not toward the safe room, but toward the main hallway. Where's Zara? Sir, there's no time. Where is she? More gunshots. Closer now. The attackers were inside the mansion. This wasn't a random assault. It was coordinated, professional, overwhelming. And suddenly Jamin understood. This was the attack Zara had warned him about. The one she didn't have all the details on yet. Because it was happening right now. Find her, he shouted at Seo. Find her now. But as he ran through the hallways, stepping over the bodies of his guards, watching his empire crumble around him, one thought consumed his mind. If Zara had been here, would she have known this was coming? Would she have stopped it? And if she died because he'd been too suspicious, too jealous, too blind to see what she really was, he would never forgive himself. The mansion burned. Smoke filled the corridors. And somewhere in the chaos, Zara Okoye was either fighting for her life or already dead. And it was all his fault. Zara had been in her quarters when the alarm started. She'd recognized the pattern immediately. 3 short blasts, 1 long. Full breach. Multiple attackers. She moved without hesitation, stripping off her maid's uniform and pulling on the dark tactical gear she kept hidden in a false bottom of her dresser. Weapons next. 2 handguns, a knife strapped to her thigh, and the secure phone she used only for emergencies. She dialed a number from memory. Network actual, a voice answered. This is Shadow 7. The Kong mansion is under assault. Multiple hostiles. I'm going in. -7. Your cover is blown if you intervene directly. Extract immediately. Not an option. Kong Jae-min is still inside. 7. Your mission was observation and indirect protection. You cannot. She ended the call. The Shadow Network had its protocols, but she had her own priorities. And right now, that priority was making sure the stubborn, suspicious, infuriating man who'd been watching her every move for the past 3 days didn't die in his own home. Zara moved through the mansion like a ghost, using the servants' passages and hidden corridors she'd memorized her first week here. The attackers were good, jade serpents, based on their coordination and the snake tattoo she glimpsed, but they didn't know the building like she did. 3 men guarding the east corridor. She dropped them silently, one by one, before they knew she was there. 2 more on the stairwell. They saw her coming this time, but it didn't matter. She was faster, more precise. They fell. She found the first of Jaemin's guards still alive, bleeding from a shoulder wound and trying to defend a door. "Where's Mr. Kong?" she demanded. The guard stared at her, trying to reconcile the maid he'd seen serving tea with the armed woman standing before him. Where is he?" "Main office." "He was looking for her." The guard's eyes widened. "He was looking for you." "Of course he was." Stubborn man. She helped the guard to his feet, directed him toward the safe room, and continued on. The main office was in the central wing, the most exposed location in the mansion. Tactically idiotic. Of course, that's where he'd gone. More serpents in the hallway. For this time, they saw her and raised their weapons, but she was already moving, using a combination of speed and the narrow corridor to her advantage. One fell to a headshot, another to a knife to the throat. The third got a shot off that grazed her shoulder. She barely felt it, before she put 2 rounds in his chest. The fourth tried to run. She let him. One survivor to report back would be useful later. The door to Jaemin's office was locked. She kicked it open. He was there, back against the wall, gun in hand, blood on his sleeve. Chairman Seo was on the ground, unconscious but breathing. 2 dead serpents lay near the door. Jaemin's gun swung toward her, then stopped as recognition hit. "Zara! We need to move. Now!" But he just stared at her weapons, her tactical gear, the blood on her hands that wasn't hers. "What are you?" Questions later. "Moving now." She crossed to Seo, checked his pulse, and looked up at Jaemin. "Can you carry him?" "Zara, what the hell is happening?" "You're being attacked by the jade serpents. I told you this was coming. Now pick up your advisor and follow me, or we're all going to die in this office." The commanding tone seemed to snap him out of his shock. He holstered his gun, lifted Seo in a fireman's carry, and nodded at her. "Lead the way." They moved quickly through the mansion, Zara navigating them through passages even Jae-min didn't know existed. Twice more they encountered serpents. Twice more Zara eliminated them with an efficiency that was almost frightening. "How many have you killed?" Jae-min asked at one point, his voice strained from Seo's weight. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." They reached the underground garage, where Zara had a car waiting. She always had an escape vehicle ready, a habit from her Shadow Network training. She opened the door, helped Jaemin load Seo into the back seat, then slid behind the wheel. "Get in!" He hesitated, standing in the doorway, looking back toward the mansion that was now fully engulfed in smoke and chaos. My men are either dead, captured, or finding their own way out. You can't help them now. But if you die here, the Jade Serpents win completely. Is that what you want? He got in the car. Zara drove them out through a hidden exit that led to a side street. Behind them, she could hear sirens. Police, fire department, probably federal agents too. This attack was too big to cover up. There would be investigations, questions, consequences. But they were alive. She drove for 20 minutes in silence, taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed, before pulling into an underground parking garage in a nondescript building in Gangnam. Where are we? Jaemin asked. Safe house. One of mine. You have a safe house. I have 3. This one's closest. She killed the engine and turned to look at him. We need to get your advisor medical attention. I have supplies upstairs. He nodded slowly, but his eyes never left her face. In the dim light of the garage, she could see him reassessing everything he thought he knew about her. We're going to have that conversation now, he said quietly. The one about who you really are. I know. No more evasions. No more secrets. I know. And then you're going to tell me why the hell you've been risking your life for me when I didn't even know you were doing it. Zara met his gaze steadily. That conversation is going to take a while. Good. Because I'm not letting you out of my sight until I have answers. Despite everything, the attack, the blood, the danger they were still in, she found herself almost smiling. Understood, Mr. Kong. After tonight, I think you can call me Jaemin. This time she did smile. Understood, Jaemin. They carried Seo upstairs, to her apartment that was sparse but functional. Zara had medical supplies in the bathroom, of course she did, and spent the next hour treating Seo's head wound while Jaemin watched. He'll be fine, she said finally, washing her hands. Concussion, probably, but nothing life-threatening. Unlike the men you killed tonight. His tone wasn't accusatory, just observational. Still, Zara felt the weight of it. Yes, unlike them. How many? 11. He let out a slow breath. 11 men. In under 30 minutes. I've been trained for situations like this. By who? And there it was. The question that would open every door, reveal every secret. Once she answered, there was no going back. Zara moved to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, and handed him one. Then she sat down across from him and began to talk. I work for an organization called the Shadow Network. We don't have official recognition from any government. We don't exist in any database. But we operate across East Asia, identifying and neutralizing criminal threats before they can escalate into wars. You're a vigilante. We prefer conflict prevention specialists. But yes, essentially. And your mission here was to prevent a war involving me. Yes and no. She took a sip of her drink. My mission was to monitor you. The Kong family has significant influence in Seoul's underworld. If you went to war with other organizations, thousands of innocent people could die in the crossfire. So we watched. And when necessary, we intervened. The convoy ambush, the rerouted shipment, the traitor. All me. Or facilitated by me, at least. Jaemin leaned back, processing. You've been manipulating my organization for over a year. I've been protecting your organization. There's a difference. Is there? From where I'm sitting, you've been lying to me every day since you arrived. The accusation stung, partly because it was true. I had a mission, a cover to maintain. Would you have let me help you if I'd told you the truth from the beginning? No. Exactly. But I'm supposed to trust you now. No. You're supposed to make your own decision about whether what I did justifies the methods I used. I won't ask for your trust. I haven't earned it. He studied her for a long moment. Why? Why what? Why risk your life? Why care whether I live or die? You don't know me. By all accounts, I'm exactly the kind of person you should want to see eliminated. Zara set down her glass and met his eyes. 6 years ago, my family owned a small restaurant in Itaewon. Good food, honest work, nothing to do with gangs or drugs or violence. But they were in the wrong place when 2 rival organizations decided to settle their differences. My parents died. My younger brother died. My sister survived but never recovered. She killed herself 2 years later. Jamin's expression softened. I'm sorry. I don't want your sympathy. I want you to understand why I do this. My family died because powerful men couldn't settle their disputes without bloodshed. Because violence spiraled out of control. Because no one stopped it before it was too late. She leaned forward. I can't bring them back, but I can prevent other families from suffering the same fate. That's why I joined the network. And that's why I've spent 14 months making sure your conflicts don't escalate into wars. Even though I'm one of those powerful men you despise. I don't despise you, Jamin. I've actually come to respect you. You're ruthless when necessary, but you're not needlessly cruel. You protect your people. You have a code, even if it's not one society would approve of. That's more than most in your position can say. He absorbed this, his expression unreadable. The attack tonight, you warned me about it. I'd heard rumors, but I didn't know the timing. If I had, we'd have been prepared. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. I almost got you killed. When I thought you were betraying me, I was planning to. He stopped himself. I know what you were planning. Chairman Seo isn't as subtle as he thinks. But you stayed anyway. I had a job to do. No, it's more than that. He stood, crossing to where she sat, and looked down at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. You could have left at any time. Could have disappeared. Let me figure it out on my own. But you stayed, even knowing I was suspicious, even knowing I might have you killed. Why? The answer caught in her throat. Because somewhere over the past 14 months, her mission had become personal. Because she'd started to see him not as an assignment, but as a man. Complicated, damaged, trying to survive in an impossible world. Because when he confronted her that night about coming home late, she'd seen something in his eyes that had nothing to do with security and everything to do with fear of losing her. But she couldn't say any of that. It was too dangerous, too revealing. Because I don't leave jobs unfinished, she said instead. He studied her face, and she had the unsettling feeling that he could see straight through the lie. Okay, he said finally, we'll go with that. The moments stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Then Seo groaned from the couch, breaking the tension. He's waking up, Zara said, grateful for the distraction. He'll need water and painkillers. She moved to help, but Jamin caught her arm. Zara! She looked back at him. Thank you. For tonight. For all of it. The sincerity in his voice almost undid her. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and went to tend to Seo. But she could feel Jamin's eyes on her back, and she knew that something fundamental had shifted between them. The question was whether that shift would save them or destroy them both. Chairman Seo woke with a groan and a string of creative curses that would have impressed even the most hardened criminals. Zara handed him water and 2 painkillers, which he took without question, his eyes adjusting to the unfamiliar surroundings. Where? He stopped when he saw Zara in her tactical gear, then Jamin watching from the corner. What happened? The Jade Serpents attacked the mansion, Jamin said. Miss Okoye saved our lives. Seo's eyes widened, then narrowed as he took in Zara's appearance. The weapons, the blood-stained gear, the confident way she moved through the space. Miss Okoye is considerably more than a maid. Yes, she is. And you knew about this? I'm learning about it. In real time. Just like you. Seo looked between them, his sharp mind clearly working through implications and possibilities. The surveillance. The meetings with rivals. You weren't selling information, you were gathering it. Something like that, Zara confirmed. And the organization you work for doesn't officially exist, which is how we prefer it. Seo absorbed this, then looked at Jamin. Sir, we need to contact our people. Find out who survived. Assess the damage. Already done. Jamin held up his phone. I've been in contact with our secondary teams. 17 of our men are confirmed dead, 23 injured. The mansion is destroyed, and the Jade Serpents are claiming it as a victory. We need to retaliate, Seo said immediately, trying to stand despite his obvious pain. We can't let this go unanswered. That's exactly what they want, Zara interjected. This attack wasn't just about destroying your base. It was about provoking a response. The Serpents want an all-out war. Then we'll give them one. And when you do, how many more of your men will die? How many civilians will get caught in the crossfire? Zara moved closer to Seo, her voice firm but not unkind. I understand the need for retaliation, but there's a smarter way to handle this. Which is, let me handle it. Both men stared at her. Absolutely not, Jamin said. You've done enough. You almost died tonight. I did my job tonight, and my job isn't finished. She turned to face him fully. The Jade Serpents attacked because they thought you were weak, vulnerable. They believe you've lost your edge. If you respond with a frontal assault, you prove you're predictable. But if you respond strategically, with intelligence and precision, you prove you're still the most dangerous man in Seoul. And how do you propose we do that? By giving me 3 days. 3 days to dismantle their operation from the inside, to expose their weaknesses and turn their own people against them, to make them regret ever hearing the name Kang Jae-min. Seo laughed, then winced at the pain it caused. You're talking about infiltrating one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the city. Alone. I won't be alone. I have resources, contacts, and the element of surprise. They think you're scrambling to survive right now. They won't expect a countermove this fast. Jae-min was quiet, his expression unreadable as he considered her proposal. Finally, he said, No. Jae-min. I said no. You've risked enough. I'm not sending you into that situation. You're not sending me anywhere. I'm choosing to go. It's suicide. It's my decision. They stared at each other, the tension crackling between them. Seo looked back and forth, clearly sensing there were layers to this argument that had nothing to do with strategy. Perhaps, Seo said carefully, we could compromise. Miss Okoye conducts her operation, but with backup. Some of our best men could provide support. No, Zara said immediately. Your men would compromise the mission. They're trained for direct combat, not infiltration. And frankly, most of them won't take orders from a woman who was serving them tea last week. Then I'll go with you, Jamin said. Absolutely not. You're the target. Your presence would. I don't care. If you're going into danger, I'm going with you. The protective tone in his voice sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. She pushed it away, focusing on the tactical realities. Jamin, listen to me. The Jade Serpents think you're dead, or hiding. That's an advantage. If you stay hidden, they'll get overconfident, make mistakes. But if you show yourself, they'll go underground, and we'll lose any chance of taking them down before this escalates into a full war. He wanted to argue. She could see it in every line of his body. But he was also smart enough to recognize the truth when he heard it. 3 days, he said finally. You have 3 days, and you check in every 12 hours, or I'm coming after you myself. Agreed? And when this is over, when you've done whatever it is you're going to do, we're going to have a very long conversation about boundaries and acceptable risks. Despite the gravity of the situation, Zara felt her lips quirk. Looking forward to it. Seo cleared his throat. If we're done with whatever this is, perhaps Miss Okoye could brief us on her plan? For the next 2 hours, Zara outlined her strategy. The Jade Serpent's operation was sophisticated, but like all organizations, it had weak points. She'd identified 3 key lieutenants who were dissatisfied with their leader's decisions. With the right pressure and incentives, they could be turned. She also had information about a weapons shipment coming in 48 hours. If that shipment disappeared, it would create chaos and suspicion within their ranks. You know an awful lot about their internal operations, Seo observed. I've been monitoring them for 8 months. I know where their leaders eat breakfast, what their accountants skim off the top, and which of their men are sleeping with each other's wives. Information is power, Chairman Seo, and I have a lot of information. By the time they finished planning, dawn was breaking over Seoul. Seo had fallen asleep again, the concussion making him drowsy, and Jamin walked Zara to the door. You need to rest before you go, he said. I'll sleep in the car. Zara, I know what you're going to say. That this is dangerous. That I should reconsider. That there are other options. She looked up at him, saw the concern in his eyes, the fear he was trying to hide. But this is what I do, Jamin. This is who I am. And if I don't do this, more people will die. People like my family. People who are just trying to live their lives. I understand that. I do. But, he stopped, seeming to struggle with words. When I thought you were dead tonight, When the mansion was burning and I couldn't find you, he ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I can't lose you. I know I have no right to say that. I know we barely know each other, not really. But the thought of you dying because of me, because of my world. I'm not dying because of you. I'm living because of my choices. There's a difference. He reached out, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Be careful. Please. The touch sent electricity through her nerve endings. She'd been touched by men before, in combat, in training, in the necessary physicality of her work. But this was different. This was intimate in a way that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with vulnerability. I will, she promised. 12 hours. I'll check in. 12 hours. She left before she could do something foolish, like lean into his touch, or tell him that she'd been thinking about him too, in moments when she shouldn't have been. That somewhere between monitoring his organization and preventing disasters, she'd started to care about him as more than an assignment. But those thoughts were dangerous. In her line of work, emotional attachments got people killed. So she pushed them away, got into her car, and drove toward the Jade Serpent's territory with nothing but her training, her weapons, and a plan that had maybe a 50-50 chance of working. She'd beaten worse odds before. The next 48 hours were a blur of motion, manipulation, and carefully calculated violence. Zara started with Lieutenant Park, a mid-level enforcer who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times despite his competence. She found him in a bar in Iriwan, drunk and bitter, and sat down beside him like they were old friends. You're loyal to a man who doesn't value you, she said without preamble. He looked at her, bleary-eyed. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows that Kim Sung-ho promised you the Gangnam territory after the Kong raid. But I also know he's already given it to Lieutenant Choi. You did all the planning, took all the risk, and Choi gets the reward. Park's expression hardened. How do you know that? I know a lot of things. Like the fact that Choi has been embezzling from the Serpents for 6 months. And that Sung-ho knows but doesn't care because Choi is his wife's cousin. You're expendable to them, Park. But you don't have to be. She slid a folder across the bar. Inside were documents, financial records, communications, proof of everything she'd just said. Park looked through them, his jaw tightening with each page. What do you want? I want you to make a choice. Stay loyal to people who treat you like dirt, or help me take them down and build something better in their place. You're with Kong. I'm with myself. And right now, what's good for me is good for Kong and bad for the people who attacked his mansion. So yes, for the moment, our interests align. Park was quiet for a long time, staring at the documents. Finally, he said, What do you need? Access codes to the warehouse where the weapons shipment is being stored. And I need them by midnight tonight. That's suicide. The place is locked down tighter than a federal prison. Good thing I'm not planning on using the front door. He studied her face, trying to figure out if she was insane or brilliant. Eventually, he must have decided it didn't matter. You get me proof that Choi is stealing, proof that Sung-ho knew, and proof that I was deliberately passed over. I'll get you those codes. Deal. She spent the next 6 hours gathering the evidence Park needed, breaking into offices, hacking computers, and calling in favors from Shadow Network contacts. By 10 p.m., she had everything compiled in a neat package that would destroy Choi's reputation and paint Sung-ho as either incompetent or corrupt. She delivered it to Park at midnight. He handed her the access codes and a blueprint of the warehouse. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most foolish, he said. I've been called both, usually on the same day. The weapons shipment was scheduled to arrive at 3 a.m. Zara was in position by 2:30, hidden in the shadows of a nearby building, watching the warehouse through high-powered binoculars. The Jade Serpents had 20 men guarding the location, more than she'd expected, but not unmanageable. She waited until the truck arrived, until everyone was focused on unloading crates of military-grade weapons that should never have made it into the country. Then she moved. The first guard never saw her coming. Neither did the second. By the time the third raised the alarm, she'd already planted explosives on the truck and was halfway across the warehouse floor. Chaos erupted. Men shouting, guns firing, but she was already gone, slipping through a service exit as the first explosion rocked the building. The truck went up in flames, taking half the weapons shipment with it. She was 3 blocks away when her phone buzzed. Status: Jamin's text read, "Alive. Mission 60% complete. Talk in 8 hours. Be safe." She allowed herself a small smile at his concern, then got back to work. The next target was Lieutenant Moon, the Serpent's chief accountant. He was easier than Park, a man motivated purely by money and self-preservation. Zara showed him evidence that Sung-ho was planning to eliminate him to cover up financial irregularities, then offered him a way out. Cooperate with her, and she'd ensure his safety. Moon gave her everything: account numbers, shell companies, the names of corrupt officials on the Serpent's payroll. It was enough to dismantle their financial network and turn half the city's underworld against them. By hour 40, Zara had turned 3 of the Serpent's key people, destroyed their weapons cache, and planted the seeds of distrust that would tear the organization apart from the inside. All she needed now was to get the information to the right people and let the chaos unfold. She met with Lieutenant Kim, the third target, in an abandoned factory. Kim was the most dangerous of the 3, a true believer in the Serpent's cause, not someone motivated by petty grievances or money. "You're wasting your time," Kim said when Zara laid out her evidence. "I'm loyal to Sung-ho. Always have been, always will be. Even when he's planning to kill you." "You're lying." "Am I?" She showed him photos. Kim's own men meeting with rival gangs, making deals behind his back. "Sung-ho thinks you're too ambitious, too popular with the younger members. He sees you as a threat, so he's been setting you up for a fall." Kim's face went pale as he looked through the evidence. "These men, I trust them. And they've been reporting to Sung-ho about your activities for months. That private meeting you had with the Huang family about expanding territory? Sung-ho knew about it within hours. The arms deal you were planning independently? He knows about that too. He's been building a case against you, Kim. And when the time is right, he's going to eliminate you and blame it on the Kong organization. You'll be his excuse to escalate the war." Kim sat down heavily, the weight of betrayal evident in every line of his body. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're a good soldier being used by a bad leader. And because if Sung-ho starts this war, hundreds of people will die. I'm trying to prevent that. By destroying my organization. By giving you a choice. Keep following Sung-ho and die as a pawn in his game. Or help me remove him and rebuild something better." Kim looked at her for a long time. "What do you want me to do? Call a meeting? All the lieutenants? Tell them you have proof that Sung-ho has been playing them against each other. Let them see the evidence for themselves. They'll turn on him without you having to fire a single shot. And if it goes wrong, then you die with honor instead of dying as a fool. Your choice." Kim made his decision. The meeting was set for the following evening at a neutral location. Zara would be there, hidden, ready to intervene if things went south. She checked in with Jamin as promised, giving him a brief update. His relief was palpable even through text messages. "Come back. Please. This has gone on long enough. 24 more hours. I promise. I'm holding you to that." The meeting of the Jade Serpent's lieutenants was held in an old restaurant that had been closed for renovations. Zara watched from a hidden position in the rafters, her presence unknown to everyone below. Kim presented the evidence methodically, laying out how Sung-ho had manipulated each of them. Park added his own testimony. Moon provided financial records that proved systematic theft and corruption. At first, there was denial, anger, accusations that this was a trick. But as the evidence mounted, as each lieutenant recognized their own betrayals in the documents, the mood shifted from disbelief to fury. When Kim Sung-ho arrived, summoned by Kim under false pretenses, he walked into a room full of his own people who now saw him as an enemy. "What is this?" Sung-ho demanded, his hand moving toward his weapon. "This," Lieutenant Kim said, "is the end of your leadership." The confrontation was swift and brutal. Sung-ho tried to talk his way out, then fight his way out, but he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. By the time it was over, the Jade Serpent's organization was in shambles, its leader dead, and its remaining members more interested in survival than revenge against the Kong family. Zara left before anyone could discover her presence, her mission complete. She drove back to the safe house as dawn broke over Seoul for the third time, exhausted but satisfied. She prevented a war, saved countless lives, and done it all without Jamin having to sacrifice his principles or his people. When she opened the door to the apartment, Jamin was waiting. He stood the moment he saw her, relief and anger and something else crossing his face in rapid succession. "You're late. You said 24 hours. It's been 26. Traffic," she said with a small smile. Then he was across the room, pulling her into his arms with an intensity that took her breath away. She stood frozen for a moment, surprised, before slowly returning the embrace. "I thought," his voice was rough against her hair, "when you didn't check in on time, I thought something had gone wrong. I'm fine. Mission complete. The jade serpents are finished." He pulled back to look at her face, his hands still on her shoulders. "Finished. Their leadership is dead or scattered. The organization is broken from the inside. They won't be a threat to you or anyone else for a very long time. You did all of that in 3 days. Well, I'm very good at my job." He laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. Then his expression sobered. "You kept your promise. 12 hours every time. I said I would. Most people who make me promises break them. I'm not most people." "No," he agreed, his eyes searching her face. "You're really not." The moment stretched between them, charged with awareness and possibility. Zara knew she should step back, maintain professional distance, remember that emotional attachments were dangerous. But she was tired of danger, tired of always being on guard, tired of denying that something had grown between them over 14 months of observation, 3 days of crisis, and countless moments of connection. So when he leaned down, giving her time to pull away, she didn't. She met him halfway, and their kiss was everything she hadn't let herself imagine, intense, desperate, real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I have so many questions," he said. "I know. About your organization. Your mission. What happens next. We'll answer all of them. But maybe," she smiled, "maybe we could sleep first. It's been a long 3 days." He laughed again, and she realized she loved that sound. So rare from him. "Sleep. Yes. That sounds perfect." They settled on the couch together, too tired to make it to the bedroom, wrapped in each other's arms. Chairman Seo had long since left to coordinate with their people, giving them privacy. "Zara," Jaemin murmured as sleep began to claim them both. The next time you're late coming home, I'll try not to be an ass about it." She smiled against his chest. "And I'll try to give you a heads up when I'm saving your life." "Deal." They slept as the sun rose over Seoul, two people from different worlds who'd found an unexpected connection in the chaos. The aftermath took weeks to fully unfold. With the jade serpents neutralized, a power vacuum emerged in Seoul's underworld. Jaemin worked to fill it carefully, using the opportunity to forge new alliances and establish rules that would prevent the kind of indiscriminate violence that had killed Zara's family. The Shadow Network officially pulled Zara from the field, citing her compromise cover. But they offered her a new position, coordinator for the Seoul region, using her connection to the Kong organization as an asset rather than a liability. She accepted, with conditions. "I want autonomy," she told her handler during a secure video call. "Full operational freedom. No mission I disagree with, no targets I don't approve. That's not how we operate. Then I quit. And you lose your only inside connection to one of the most powerful criminal organizations in East Asia." There was a long pause. "You've changed, Seven. You used to follow orders without question. I used to think the mission was all that mattered. Now I know there's more to it than that." Another pause. "Fine. Autonomy granted. But you still report to me monthly. Deal." The mansion was rebuilt over 4 months, stronger and more secure than before. Jaemin insisted on including several modifications that Zara suggested. Hidden passages, reinforced safe rooms, surveillance systems that even she approved of. "Paranoid," she teased as they walked through the construction site. "Practical. I learned from the best." Her living situation changed, too. She maintained her quarters at the mansion but also kept the safe house, splitting her time between both. Jaemin never asked her to choose one or the other. He understood that she needed independence, needed the ability to move freely in both his world and her own. "Are we?" she asked one evening, 6 weeks after the serpent's fall. They were on the mansion's new rooftop terrace, overlooking the city lights. "What are we doing here, Jaemin?" He took a sip of his wine, considering. "Honestly, I don't know. We're not exactly conventional. That's an understatement. You work for a secret organization. I run a criminal empire. You've killed to protect me. I've ordered people killed for less. He turned to look at her. On paper, we're a disaster. And in reality, I trust you more than anyone I've ever met. I respect you. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I care about you. More than I probably should. She moved closer, taking his hand. I care about you too. Which is terrifying, considering my job is to remain objective and detached. So we're both terrible at our jobs when it comes to each other. Apparently. He smiled, then grew serious. I know I can't ask you to give up your work. I wouldn't want you to. It's part of who you are. But I need to know, are you staying? Or is this temporary? I'm staying, she said without hesitation. Seoul is my home. This, she gestured between them, is real. I'm not walking away from it. Even though it's complicated, especially because it's complicated, the easy choices are rarely the right ones. He pulled her closer, and she went willingly, resting her head against his chest. Below them, the city sprawled in all directions, dangerous, beautiful, full of secrets. There's one thing I need to know, he said after a while. What's that? That night when I confronted you, when I asked if it was an hour to come home, you never actually told me where you'd been. She smiled against his shirt. I was preventing an assassination attempt. One of your rivals had hired a sniper to take you out during your meeting the next day. I tracked down the sniper, convinced him his employer was planning to kill him after the job to tie up loose ends, and persuaded him to leave the country instead. You saved my life that night. Yes. And I yelled at you for being late. Yes. I'm an idiot. Yes. She pulled back to look at his face. But you're my idiot, so I suppose I'll keep you. He laughed and kissed her, and for a moment, the weight of their respective worlds fell away. They were just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. You know, he said when they broke apart, you never actually answered my question that night. Which question? Is this an hour to come home? She pretended to consider it. That depends. Are you going to yell at me again? Probably. You're infuriating. And you're controlling. And paranoid. And jealous. I prefer protective. You would. They smiled at each other, and Zara thought about how far they'd come from that confrontation in the foyer. How much had changed in such a short time. To answer your question, she said, any hour is the right hour to come home, as long as home is where you are. His expression softened in a way she'd rarely seen. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Don't get used to it. I'm not usually this sentimental. I know. That's why it matters. They stayed on the terrace until late into the night, talking about everything and nothing. About the future they were building together, about the challenges they'd face, about the balance they'd need to maintain between her missions and his empire. It wouldn't be easy. Their relationship would be tested by danger, by secrecy, by the fundamental incompatibility of their worlds. But as Zara looked at the man beside her, the ruthless Mafia boss who'd been undone by jealousy, who trusted her despite every reason not to, who'd let her into his life and his heart, she knew it was worth it. Some battles were worth fighting. Some risks were worth taking. And some people were worth coming home to, no matter the hour. 3 months later, Zara stood in Jamin's office, delivering her report on the latest threat assessment. Chairman Seo listened quietly from his usual position by the window, having long since accepted that the Maid-turned-assassin was now an integral part of their organization. The Huang family is making moves in Gangnam, she concluded. Nothing aggressive yet, but they're testing boundaries. I recommend a meeting, neutral ground, open communication. Show them we're willing to coexist peacefully, but prepared to respond if they're not. Agreed, Jamin said, making notes. Set it up. Seo, I want a full security detail for the meeting location. Already on it, sir. There was a knock at the door, and one of the housekeepers entered with tea. She smiled at Zara in a way that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. The staff now understood that the quiet maid had been protecting them all along. Thank you, Minji, Zara said warmly. When the housekeeper left, Seo cleared his throat. If we're done with business, I have a personal matter to discuss. Go ahead, Jamin said. It's about the annual charity gala. The one your family has hosted for 30 years. The one that was cancelled after the attack. What about it? I think we should host it this year. Show the city that we've recovered. That we're stronger than ever. Seo looked at Zara. And I think Miss Okoye should attend. As your guest, not a staff. Jaemin raised an eyebrow, looking at Zara. What do you think? She considered it. Public appearances came with risks, both professional and personal. But Seo was right. It would send a message. I think it's a good idea. But I'm not wearing a maid's uniform. Jaemin smiled. I wouldn't dream of it. You'll need a proper dress. Something that makes it very clear you're there as my partner. Partner, she repeated, testing the word. Unless you prefer a different term? No. Partner works. Seo looked satisfied. I'll make the arrangements. The gala will be in 6 weeks. That should give everyone enough time to prepare and to speculate about the mysterious woman on Mr. Kang's arm. After he left, Zara moved to stand beside Jaemin at his desk. Are you sure about this? Going public with whatever this is? I'm sure. He stood, pulling her close. I'm done hiding what you mean to me. Let them speculate. Let them talk. I don't care. Your reputation. My reputation is that I'm ruthless and dangerous and not to be crossed. Dating a woman who's even more dangerous than I am only enhances that reputation. She laughed. When you put it that way. Besides, it's been 3 months. If we're going to make this work long-term, we can't keep it completely secret forever. Long-term, she echoed. You're thinking long-term. Aren't you? She was. Despite every instinct that told her emotional attachments were dangerous, despite knowing that their situation was complicated and potentially unstable, she was thinking long-term too. Yeah, she admitted. I am. Good. He kissed her forehead. Because you're stuck with me now. No late-night disappearances to avoid this conversation. What if I have a mission? Then you have a mission. But you come back. Always. Always, she agreed. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a message from the Shadow Network. She read it quickly, her expression growing serious. Problem? Jaemin asked. Possible human trafficking ring operating in Incheon. The network wants me to investigate. How long? 3, maybe 4 days. He nodded, his expression neutral, but she could see the concern in his eyes. Be careful. Always am. And Zara. He caught her hand as she turned to leave. Come home safe. I don't care what hour. She smiled, remembering that night 6 months ago when he'd confronted her in the foyer, when everything had been different between them. I will, she promised. And next time I'm late, it'll be because I'm saving your life again. I'm counting on it. She left his office, already mentally preparing for the mission ahead. But as she walked through the mansion, no longer just a place she worked, but a place she belonged, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. She'd lost her family to violence, had spent years trying to prevent others from suffering the same fate, had built walls around her heart to protect herself from ever feeling that loss again. But somehow, despite everything, she found a new family. A complicated, dangerous, unconventional family that included a mafia boss, his aging advisor, and a household of people who'd come to respect the quiet maid who was so much more. And when she returned from Incheon 4 days later, arriving at 1:47 a.m. due to complications with the mission, Jaemin was waiting in the foyer. Not angry, not jealous, just relieved. Welcome home, he said simply. And for the first time since her family died, Zara Okoye truly felt like she was home. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with Zara and Jaemin's story. This is what happens when power meets purpose, when jealousy transforms into trust, and when 2 people from impossible worlds find something real. If you enjoyed this journey through danger, deception, and unexpected love, please hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment, and subscribe for more stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. What did you think of Zara's reveal? Did Jaemin's jealousy feel justified? Let me know below. I read every comment. Until next time, remember, sometimes the people we underestimate are the ones protecting us all along.